They laughed when the cleaning lady spoke. Her thick accent made every word a target, every sentence a joke. But the man watching from the corner understood every syllable perfectly, and he was about to remind them all that accent doesn't measure worth. The alarm clock screamed at 4:45 a.m., its shrill cry cutting through the darkness of Katarzyna Kowalski's studio apartment like a knife. She slammed her hand down on the button, silencing it with the practiced precision of someone who'd been waking up at this ungodly hour for 8 years straight. The room was freezing. Her landlord had promised to fix the heater 3 months ago, but promises were cheap in buildings like this. Kat sat up slowly, her body protesting every movement. At 34, she shouldn't feel this old, but scrubbing floors for 10 hours a day had a way of aging a person faster than time alone ever could. She shuffled to the tiny kitchenette, her bare feet slapping against linoleum that had been white once, maybe decades ago. Now it was a dingy gray that no amount of cleaning could fix. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the cramped space with the only warmth she'd feel until she got to work. Instant coffee. The cheap kind that tasted like burnt dirt, but caffeine was caffeine. She poured it into a chipped mug, her fingers wrapping around the ceramic like it was a lifeline. On the counter sat a photograph in a cracked frame. Her husband, Piotr, grinning at the camera with that smile that used to make her feel like the world was conquerable. 3 years since the accident. 3 years since the construction site safety failure that had taken him from her, leaving behind nothing but medical bills and a work visa that felt more like a prison sentence with each passing day. She touched the frame gently. "Kochani," she whispered, the Polish endearment feeling safer in the pre-dawn darkness, where no one could mock how the words shaped her mouth. 2 buses later, Kat stood in front of Riverside Academy, watching expensive cars drop off students who spent more on coffee than she made in a day. The building loomed before her, all brick and privilege, its windows reflecting the rising sun like they were made of gold instead of glass. Her uniform was clean, but worn, the blue fabric thin at the elbows. She'd stitched the name tag back on 3 times already. It read, Kasia, because the school's head of maintenance said Katarzyna was too difficult to pronounce. She'd stopped correcting people after the first month. The service entrance was around back, naturally. God forbid the students see the help using the same doors they did. Kat swiped her badge and entered the basement level, where the cleaning supplies lived in a room that smelled like industrial lemon and desperation. "Morning, Kasia." Tom, the other janitor, nodded at her from his corner. He was kind, one of the few who didn't treat her like she was invisible. "Third-floor bathrooms are a disaster today. Some kid threw up in the girls' room. Thank you for telling," Kat said carefully, her accent turning the th sound into something softer, rounder. She'd been trying to fix it for years, but her tongue refused to cooperate. By 8 a.m., she was on the 2nd floor, mopping the main hallway while students flooded past her like she was a piece of furniture. That's when she heard them. "Oh my God, did you hear her trying to talk to Mr. Peterson yesterday?" The voice belonged to Brittany, a junior with blonde hair and a smile sharp enough to cut. It was like, "Thank you very much." I literally couldn't understand anything. Laughter erupted around her. Derek Whitmore, the ringleader, tall and golden and utterly convinced the world existed to serve him, stepped closer to Kat's mop bucket. He was 16, but carried himself with the arrogance of someone who'd never been told no in his life. "Hey, cleaning lady," he called out, his voice dripping with false sweetness. "Can you say, 'I speak English good'?" His friends howled. Kat kept mopping, her knuckles white around the handle. "Come on, don't be shy." Derek kicked her bucket slightly, sloshing dirty water onto the floor she'd just cleaned. "Give us a show. Say something in your language. It's, what, Russian?" "Polish," Kat said quietly, immediately regretting it. "Polish, Russian, same thing." Derek grinned. "You all sound like you're choking on potatoes anyway." More laughter. A teacher walked past Ms. Henderson, who taught English literature and definitely saw what was happening. She looked at Kat, then at Derek, and kept walking. After all, Derek's father was the school director. Complaints had a way of disappearing when they involved the Whitmore family. Kat felt something crack inside her chest. Not break. She'd been through worse. But definitely crack. She bent down to wipe up the spilled water, and Derek's designer sneaker came down on her hand. Not hard enough to injure, but enough to hurt, enough to humiliate. Oops, he said, not moving his foot. Didn't see you there. That's when she noticed him. A man standing at the far end of the hallway, half hidden by the pillar near the administrative offices. Tall, imposing, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than her yearly salary. His steel-gray eyes were fixed on the scene unfolding before him, and his expression was completely unreadable. Viktor Volkov had arrived 20 minutes early to pick up his daughter from her after-school art program. He'd been watching for 5 minutes, his rage building like a slow-burning fire. Kat finished her shift at 3 p.m., her body aching in ways that made her feel decades older than 34. The hallway incident with Derek had left bruises on more than just her hand. She'd scrubbed bathrooms for 2 hours afterward, trying to wash away the humiliation along with the grime. The school was mostly empty now, just a few students lingering for after-school programs. Kat gathered her cleaning supplies, wheeling her cart toward the storage room on the 3rd floor. That's when she heard it. A sound that didn't belong, wheezing, desperate, like someone trying to breathe through a straw that kept getting narrower. Kat froze, her hand on the cart handle. Every instinct told her to keep moving, to mind her own business. She was already invisible here. Getting involved would only make things worse. But the sound came again, weaker this time, and she couldn't ignore it. She followed the noise to the girls' bathroom at the far end of the 3rd floor corridor. The door was slightly ajar, and through the gap, she could see small feet in expensive patent leather shoes, toes pointed inward in a way that spoke of distress. Kat pushed the door open fully. A little girl sat crumpled against the tiled wall beneath the sinks, her face an alarming shade of blue-gray. Her chest heaved with the effort of pulling in air that wouldn't come. On the floor beside her lay an inhaler, clearly empty. Oh, God. Kat breathed, dropping to her knees beside the child. "Honey, can you hear me?" The girl's eyes found hers, wide and terrified and drowning. She tried to speak, but couldn't form words. Her small hands clutched at her throat in universal panic. Kat's mind raced back 23 years to her childhood home in Warsaw. Her younger sister Zofia had suffered from severe asthma. Kat had watched her parents manage countless attacks before they could afford proper treatment. She knew this terror intimately. "Listen to me," Kat said firmly, placing her hands on the girl's shoulders. "I help you. Look at my eyes. Only my eyes." The child's gaze locked onto hers, desperate for an anchor. "We breathe together, yes?" Kat demonstrated, taking a slow breath in through her nose, letting it out through pursed lips. Slow. Like this. With me. The girl tried to follow, her attempt resulting in a strangled gasp. "Is okay. Try again." Kat kept her voice calm, steady, even as her heart hammered against her ribs. She began to hum. A soft melody her mother used to sing when Zofia couldn't breathe. The rhythm was everything, the pattern of sound creating a map for the girl's struggling lungs to follow. She pulled off her worn cardigan and wrapped it around the child's shoulders, rubbing her arms briskly. Warmth helped, she remembered. Cold tightened everything. The girl's eyes began to focus slightly, her panic ebbing enough to let instinct take over. She followed Kat's breathing pattern, each cycle bringing a tiny bit more air. The blue tint started to fade from her lips. "Good girl," Kat murmured. "You are doing so good. Again. Breathe with me." Her phone was in her pocket. She should call for help. But breaking eye contact might send the child back into panic, and Kat couldn't risk it. Instead, she kept humming, kept breathing, kept the girl tethered to consciousness through sheer force of will. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Gradually, color returned to the child's face. Her breathing, while still labored, became less desperate. She slumped against Kat, exhausted from the fight. That's when Kat heard footsteps pounding down the hallway. The bathroom door slammed open, and a security guard stood there, his face sheet white. "Jesus Christ!" he gasped. "Is that Nina Volkov?" The name meant nothing to Kat, but the terror in his voice meant everything. "She needs hospital," Kat said, still holding the girl close. "Asthma attack. Very bad." The guard was already on his radio. "We have a medical emergency. 3rd floor. Girls' bathroom." It's the Volkov kid. Get Director Whitmore up here now." Within 2 minutes, the hallway outside filled with people. Director Whitmore himself appeared, his usually composed face twisted with something that looked like absolute panic. Behind him came 2 teachers and the school nurse, who immediately tried to take Nina from Kat's arms. The girl made a sound of protest, her small hands gripping Kat's shirt with surprising strength. "It's all right," the nurse said soothingly. "We need to check you, sweetheart." But Nina wouldn't let go. She turned her face into Kat's shoulder and whispered something so quiet that only Kat heard it. "Stay." The word was in English, but the next one wasn't. "Please, stay." Kat's blood went cold. The second word had been in Polish. Flawless Polish, the way a native speaker would say it, with the particular accent of southern Poland that Kat knew as well as her own heartbeat. "You speak," Kat started, but the girl's grip tightened desperately. "Mr. Whitmore," the nurse said urgently. "We need to call her father. Now." The director's face went from panicked to absolutely terrified. "He's going to sue us into oblivion. Do you understand that? His daughter nearly died in our school." "She did not die," Kat said quietly. "She is breathing." Whitmore's eyes landed on her as if noticing her for the first time. "Who the hell are you?" "Cleaning staff, sir. I found her. Get her out of here," he ordered. "We can't have random employees involved when Volkov arrives." But when the nurse tried again to take Nina, the girl began to struggle, her breathing immediately becoming erratic again. "Stop," Kat commanded, her voice sharp enough to cut through the chaos. "You make her worse. She needs to stay calm." "This is my school," Whitmore began. But paramedics were already rushing in with equipment, their presence filling the small bathroom with urgency and authority. One of them, a woman with kind eyes, knelt beside Kat and Nina. "What happened?" "Asthma attack. Her inhaler was empty. I used breathing techniques until she stabilized." The paramedic checked Nina's vitals quickly. "You likely saved her life. How did you know what to do?" "My sister," Kat said simply. Outside, the sound of multiple vehicles screeching to a halt made everyone flinch. Car doors slammed. Footsteps, many of them, echoed through the hallway with military precision. And then he was there. Viktor Volkov filled the doorway like a storm personified. 6 feet 2 inches of controlled fury wrapped in a charcoal suit that probably cost what Kat made in 6 months. 4 men flanked him, their jackets cut precisely to hide what Kat suspected were weapons. The entire hallway seemed to shrink around his presence. His gray eyes swept the scene with mechanical precision. Teachers, director, paramedics, all of them pressing themselves against walls like prey animals facing a predator. Then his gaze landed on Nina, still clutched in Kat's arms, and something cracked in that granite expression. "Nina," he breathed, crossing the distance in 3 long strides. He dropped to his knees beside them, his large hands reaching out to cup his daughter's face with a gentleness that contradicted everything else about him. When he spoke, his voice carried the faintest trace of an accent that Kat couldn't quite place. "Are you all right? Talk to me, princess." Nina's response shattered the air like glass. "Daddy, she saved me." The words came out in Polish, rapid and relieved. "I couldn't breathe and she knew what to do. She sang to me like Mama used to." Victor's entire body went rigid. His eyes snapped to Kat's face, truly seeing her for the first time. The intensity of that stare made her want to disappear into the floor tiles. "You speak Polish," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes," Kat managed, her accent suddenly feeling like armor instead of a weakness. "I am from Warsaw." Something flickered across his features too quickly to identify. He switched languages effortlessly, his Polish carrying the distinct accent of southern Poland, specifically Krakow. "You're the cleaning woman," he said in Polish. "I saw what happened in the hallway earlier, with the boy." Kat's stomach dropped. He'd witnessed her humiliation. "Perfect." "It is nothing," she replied in Polish, keeping her eyes down. "I am used to it." "You shouldn't have to be." His voice carried an edge that made the temperature in the room seem to drop. The paramedic cleared her throat. "Mr. Volkov, we need to transport Nina to the hospital for observation. The attack was severe." Viktor nodded, but Nina's grip on Kat tightened immediately. No, Nina said in English, her voice small but determined. She has to come too. Sweetheart, the nice lady has to go home. Viktor started, but Nina cut him off with a look of pure panic. Please, Daddy. Please. She can't leave. Nina's breathing began to accelerate again, the beginnings of another attack. The paramedic stepped forward quickly. Mr. Volkov, given her emotional state, it might be best if the woman accompanies us, at least until Nina is stabilized. Viktor's jaw clenched. He looked at Kat with an expression that seemed to be calculating 1,000 variables at once. What's your name? He asked in English. Katarzyna Kowalski, she replied. People here call me Kasia. Katarzyna, he repeated, using the full pronunciation with perfect accuracy. Then, in Polish, will you come with us? Just until she's calm. I'll pay you for your time. I don't need money for helping child, Kat said, also in Polish. If she needs me, I come. Director Whitmore, who'd been pressed against the wall in terrified silence, finally found his voice. Mr. Volkov, I assure you this incident will be thoroughly investigated. We take the safety of all our students seriously. Viktor stood slowly, turning to face the director. The movement was deliberate, almost lazy, but it made Whitmore take a step backward. My daughter nearly died in your school, Viktor said, his English perfectly crisp and more threatening for its calm delivery. She had an asthma attack in a bathroom where she lay for God knows how long before anyone found her. Where were your staff? Your protocols? There must have been a communication breakdown. Whitmore stammered. There was. Viktor's smile didn't reach his eyes. And we'll discuss it in detail. Later. When my daughter isn't present. The threat hung in the air like smoke. The paramedics lifted Nina onto a stretcher, and she immediately reached for Kat's hand. Kat found herself being ushered down the hallway, surrounded by Viktor's men, with the Mafia boss himself walking beside her. In the ambulance, Nina refused to let go of Kat's hand. Viktor sat across from them, watching with an expression that Kat couldn't read. The paramedic worked efficiently, checking vitals and administering a nebulizer treatment. How did you know what to do? Viktor asked quietly in Polish. My younger sister had asthma. Kat replied in the same language. Very severe. I learned to help her before ambulance could arrive. Where is she now? Still in Poland. Married. 2 children. Her asthma is better now. Viktor nodded slowly. And you? How long have you been in America? 8 years. Alone? The question hit harder than it should have. My husband died 3 years ago. Construction accident. Something shifted in Viktor's expression. Not pity exactly. More like recognition. My wife died 18 months ago, he said. Cancer. Nina's eyes filled with tears at the mention of her mother. Kat squeezed her hand gently and began humming again, the same melody from before. Nina's breathing steadied. That song, Viktor said. How do you know it? It's an old lullaby from Mazovia region. My mother sang it to me. Olivia, my wife, she sang it too. She was from Poznan. The pieces clicked together. That's why Nina recognized the song. That's why she responded to Polish. Her mother had raised her with the language. They arrived at a private hospital, the kind with marble floors and staff who moved with the quiet efficiency of expensive training. Nina was whisked into a private examination room, and Kat found herself standing in a hallway that felt more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. Viktor's men positioned themselves at strategic points. One of them spoke into his wrist, coordinating something. Another watched the elevator with the focus of a trained guard. Viktor pulled Kat aside, away from the others. I need to ask you something, he said in Polish, and I need you to answer honestly. Kat's mouth went dry. All right. Why did you help her? You don't know us. You could have just called for help and walked away, because she was child who needed help, Kat said simply. That is enough reason. Viktor studied her face for a long moment. Most people would have thought about lawyers, about liability, about protecting themselves. Maybe I'm not most people. No, Viktor agreed. You're not. 2 hours later, Nina was stable and sleeping in a private room that looked more like a luxury hotel suite than a hospital ward. Soft lighting, pastel walls, a television mounted discreetly, and enough medical equipment to stock a small clinic. Kat sat in a chair beside the bed, exhausted and overwhelmed. Viktor stood by the window, speaking in rapid Russian on his phone. She understood none of it, but the tone conveyed authority and barely controlled anger. When he finished, he turned to find her watching him. "The doctors say she needs to stay overnight for observation," he said in Polish. "Her asthma has been getting worse. Stress-related, since her mother died." Kat said quietly, "Yes." Viktor moved to the foot of Nina's bed, his expression softening as he looked at his sleeping daughter. "She hasn't been the same. The asthma appeared 3 months after we lost Olivia. The doctors call it psychosomatic, triggered by grief. She needs therapy, someone who specializes in childhood trauma. She's seen 4 therapists. She refuses to talk to any of them." His jaw tightened. "She's had 6 nannies in 18 months. She either ignores them completely or makes them so miserable they quit." Kat understood what he wasn't saying. This little girl was drowning in grief, and nothing anyone did seemed to reach her. "Today was the first time I've seen her trust anyone since Olivia died," Viktor continued. "You got through to her in minutes. Something I haven't managed in over a year." Kat shifted uncomfortably. "I was just helping. Any person would do same." "No," Viktor said flatly. "They wouldn't. You saw what happened at that school. People walked past her, teachers, staff, students. You were the only one who stopped." He pulled another chair close to hers and sat down. This close, Kat could see the exhaustion etched into his face, the grief he carried like armor. "I'm going to make you an offer," Viktor said, "and I need you to hear me out before you refuse." Kat's stomach nodded. "What kind of offer?" "I want to hire you, to be Nina's companion, her caretaker. I am cleaning lady. I don't know how to be nanny. I don't need a nanny. I need someone my daughter trusts." Viktor leaned forward. "I'll pay you $8,000 a week. Cash or direct deposit, whatever you prefer." Kat's mind went blank. $8,000. That was more than she made in 4 months at the school. "That is crazy amount of money," she finally managed. "It's what your time is worth to me." Viktor's voice was steady. "You'd live in my home. Your own suite, complete privacy. All expenses paid. Your only job would be to spend time with Nina, help her heal, keep her safe." "Mr. Volkov, I cannot—" "Viktor," he corrected. "And yes, you can. You saved my daughter's life today, Katarzyna. Do you understand what that means to me?" The way he said her name, with perfect pronunciation and something that sounded like reverence, made her chest tighten. "I have job already," she said weakly. "Contract with school. I'll buy out your contract. I'll pay whatever penalty fees exist." Viktor's gray eyes held hers. "I saw what happened to you today. That boy, Derek Whitmore. The way they treated you. The way everyone treats you." Shame burned through her. "You don't need to say—" "They mock your accent. They make you invisible. They treat you like you're worthless." His voice carried steel beneath the calm. "But Nina doesn't see any of that. She sees someone who stayed when others walked away. Someone who knew exactly what she needed. Someone who speaks her mother's language." Kat's eyes stung with unexpected tears. "This is too much. I don't understand why you trust stranger with your daughter. You're not a stranger anymore." Viktor pulled out his phone and showed her the screen. Security footage from the school hallway. Derek standing on her hand. The other students laughing. Her face, trying so hard not to cry. "I saw this," Viktor said quietly. "I saw them humiliate you, and I was going to walk away. It wasn't my business, but then I thought about what kind of example I'd be setting for Nina. What kind of man walks away when someone is being hurt?" He swiped to another angle. Kat in the bathroom with Nina, wrapping her cardigan around the child, humming, breathing with her. "And then I saw this. You gave her your warmth, your time, your knowledge. You gave her your language." Viktor's voice roughened. "You gave my daughter her mother back, just for a few minutes. And she hasn't let go of that." Kat looked at Nina, small and fragile in the hospital bed. "What if I fail?" she whispered. "What if I cannot help her?" "What if you can?" Viktor countered. "What if you're exactly what she needs? Your world is dangerous. I see your men, the way people react to you. I am not stupid, Viktor. I know what you are. He didn't deny it. Yes, my world is dangerous, but I protect what's mine. You'd be under that protection. Round-the-clock security, trained professionals, the best of everything. Protected like prisoner, protected like family. His gaze didn't waver. I won't lie to you about the risks, but I will promise you this. No one will mock your accent in my home. No one will treat you as less than. You'll be respected, valued, and safe. Kat thought about her studio apartment with its broken heater, the buses she took at 4:45 a.m., the way Derek's friends had laughed, the endless, grinding poverty that no amount of hard work seemed to escape. I need to think about this, she said. Of course. Take your time. Viktor stood. But while you're thinking, consider something. You're 34 years old, working yourself to exhaustion for people who don't value you. You could continue that for the rest of your life. Or you could try something different. He walked to the door, then paused. My driver will take you home tonight. Tomorrow, if you decide yes, call this number. He handed her a business card. If you decide no, I'll respect that. But either way, you'll receive $50,000 as thanks for saving Nina's life. I cannot accept that, Kat said immediately. You already did. It's being transferred to your account as we speak. Viktor's expression was unreadable. I pay my debts, Katarzyna, always. He left before she could protest further. Kat sat in the silence, her mind spinning. Nina stirred, her eyes fluttering open. When she saw Kat, she smiled. You stayed. Of course I stayed, Kat said gently in Polish. Will you come tomorrow too? Nina's voice was hopeful, fragile, and Kat realized she'd already made her decision. The Volkov estate sat behind iron gates and stone walls that spoke of old money and older secrets. Kat's first morning there began at 6:30 a.m., not because anyone woke her, but because 34 years of poverty had programmed her body to reject rest. She lay in a bed so soft it felt like floating, staring at a ceiling 3 times higher than her entire studio apartment had been tall. Her suite, Viktor had called it. 3 rooms. A bedroom with furniture that belonged in a museum. A sitting area with leather chairs and bookshelves filled with Polish literature she recognized from her childhood. A bathroom with heated marble floors and a shower that had more buttons than her old television. Someone knocked. Kat pulled on the robe that had been laid out for her, real silk that whispered against her skin. Come in, she called, her accent still thick in the early morning. A woman in her 50s entered, carrying a tray. Good morning, Miss Kowalski. I'm Helena, the head housekeeper. Mr. Volkov thought you might prefer Polish breakfast your first day. The tray held fresh bread, soft cheese, cold cuts, tomatoes, and tea in a glass cup the way her grandmother used to serve it. Kat's throat tightened. Thank you, she managed. This is very kind. Mr. Volkov is very particular about making people feel welcome. Helena set the tray on the small table by the window. Miss Nina usually wakes around 8. She's asking for you already. After Helena left, Kat sat by the window overlooking gardens that seemed to stretch forever. Somewhere in that massive house, Viktor was probably already working, making decisions that affected lives she couldn't imagine. And Nina, sweet Nina, who'd lost her mother and couldn't breathe without panicking, was asking for her. What had she gotten herself into? She found out at breakfast. The dining room could have seated 20, but only 3 places were set at one end of the long mahogany table. Nina ran in wearing pajamas with cartoon characters, her face lighting up when she saw Kat. You're here! You're really here! Nina threw her arms around Kat's waist. Daddy said you were staying, but I thought maybe I dreamed it. I am really here, Kat said, hugging her back. For as long as you need me. Viktor appeared in the doorway, dressed in dark slacks and a crisp white shirt, no jacket. He looked more approachable this way, almost human. His gray eyes found Kat's, something unreadable passing through them. Good morning, he said in Polish. I hope you slept well. Too well, Kat admitted. I am not used to such comfortable bed. You'll get used to it. He poured himself coffee. After breakfast, I thought Nina could show you around the property. The grounds are extensive, but there are specific areas that are off limits. My men will point them out. Nina chattered through breakfast about her favorite places: the garden with the fountain, the library with the window seat, the music room where her mother's piano still sat untouched. Viktor listened with quiet attention, adding details, smiling at his daughter's enthusiasm. Kat watched them together and saw the love, fierce and protective, and slightly desperate. This man who commanded fear in the outside world was helpless in the face of his daughter's grief. Later, Nina pulled Kat upstairs to a room that made her breath catch. It was painted soft pink, but decorated with touches that were distinctly Polish. Embroidered pillows, a wooden jewelry box with traditional Lowic patterns, photographs of a beautiful woman with dark hair, and Nina's exact smile. "This was Mama's sitting room," Nina said quietly. "Daddy keeps it exactly how she left it." Kat approached the photograph slowly. Olivia Volkov had been stunning, but it was the warmth in her expression that struck deepest. In every picture, she was laughing, dancing, holding Nina as a baby. "She was very beautiful," Kat said softly. "She used to sing to me every night." Nina opened an ornate music box, and a lullaby spilled out. The same melody Kat had hummed in the hospital. "This song. Daddy can't listen to it without crying, so I only play it when I'm alone." Nina climbed into the window seat, patting the cushion beside her. Kat sat, and the little girl curled against her side with a naturalness that felt both precious and terrifying. "Tell me about your husband," Nina said. "Daddy said he died too." The request caught Kat off guard. She'd expected to give comfort, not receive it. "His name was Piotr. He was construction worker, very strong, very kind. He made me laugh every day. The memories hurt less than they used to, but they still hurt. He died 3 years ago, when building collapsed. Do you miss him?" "Every day. But missing him is different now. Less like drowning, more like remembering something sweet." Nina thought about this. "I'm still drowning." "I know, sweetheart." Kat wrapped an arm around her. "That is normal. It gets better slowly. So slowly you don't notice at first. But one day you'll realize you can breathe a little easier." They sat in silence, two people bonded by loss, while the music box played its haunting melody. Over the next 2 weeks, Kat fell into a rhythm she'd never imagined possible. Mornings with Nina, teaching her Polish folk songs and stories. Afternoons in the garden, helping with breathing exercises that slowly improved Nina's asthma. Evenings, increasingly, the three of them would have dinner together. Viktor was different at home, still commanding, still carrying that edge of danger. But with Nina he softened, and with Kat he was unfailingly respectful, almost tentative. One evening, after Nina had gone to bed, Kat found Viktor in his study. The door was open, and he sat behind his desk reviewing papers, his expression hard. "I can come back," Kat said. But he looked up and his face transformed. "No, please. I could use the distraction." He gestured to the chair across from him. "How is she doing, really?" "Better," Kat said honestly. "She talks more about Olivia now. At first she avoided it, but now she shares memories. That is good sign." She laughs again. Viktor's voice carried wonder. "I'd almost forgotten what that sounded like. She still has bad days. Yesterday she had small panic attack when she couldn't find her inhaler." "I know. I watched the security footage." At Kat's surprised look, he clarified, "I have cameras in most common areas. Not bedrooms or bathrooms, but everywhere else. It's for security." "You watched me calm her down and said nothing?" "I watched you hold her while she cried. I watched you teach her that fear can't destroy her if she faces it with someone who cares." Viktor's gray eyes held hers. "You're healing my daughter, Katarzyna." How could I interrupt that? The way he said her name, with perfect Polish pronunciation, and something that sounded like reverence, made her pulse quicken. "She is healing herself," Kat corrected. "I am just giving her safe space to do it. You're giving her more than that. You're giving her back her mother's language, her culture, her connection to Olivia." He stood, moving around the desk. "Do you know what she told me today?" She said, "Mama would have liked Kat. They both make me feel safe." Kat's eyes stung. That is a beautiful thing to say. It's the truth. Viktor was closer now, close enough that she could see the exhaustion in his face, the grief he carried like armor. Thank you. For everything you're doing. For everything you are. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither seemed ready to name. 3 weeks into her new life, Kat noticed the changes in Viktor's behavior. More phone calls taken in hushed voices behind closed doors. More meetings with men whose faces carried violence like a second skin. More security guards rotating through the property with military precision. She noticed because she'd started paying attention to him in ways that had nothing to do with Nina. The way his jaw tightened when he was worried. The way his fingers drummed against his desk when he was calculating odds. The way his eyes found her across rooms, lingering just a moment too long before looking away. It was dangerous, this awareness. She knew it. But knowing and stopping were two different things. Something is wrong, Kat said one evening after Nina had gone to bed. She'd found Viktor in his office again, staring at surveillance monitors with an expression that made her stomach clench. He looked up, surprised. What makes you say that? You have 12 guards instead of 8. You made Nina stay inside gardens only. No walks outside property. You check security cameras every 10 minutes. Kat crossed her arms. I am not stupid, Viktor. What is happening? He studied her for a long moment, then sighed. A rival is making moves. Gregor Novak. He thinks I've gone soft since Olivia died. Thinks Nina makes me vulnerable. Does she? Yes. The admission seemed to cost him. But that doesn't mean I won't protect her with everything I have. And me? Kat asked quietly. Am I also target? Viktor's expression darkened. You became a target the moment Derek Whitmore recognized you leaving here with Nina. His father owes Novak money. Substantial money. He sold information about you to pay off interest. Kat's blood went cold. What kind of information? Your schedule. Your routines. The fact that Nina trusts you. Viktor stood, moving around the desk. Novak knows that hurting you would destroy Nina, which would destroy me. Your leverage now, Katarzyna. I'm sorry. She should have been terrified. Part of her was. But another part, the part that had survived 8 years in a foreign country alone, straightened her spine. Then we make sure I am not easy target, she said. Viktor's lips twitched. We? You think I will hide while people try to hurt child I care for? No. I help. Before Viktor could respond, his phone rang. He answered in rapid Russian, his face going pale. When he hung up, his expression was pure ice. They're moving faster than I thought. Stay here. Don't leave this room. He was already heading for the door. Viktor, what? Now, Katarzyna! He disappeared into the hallway, shouting orders. Kat heard the house come alive with activity, doors slamming, footsteps running. Then Nina's scream cut through everything. Kat didn't think. She ran. Nina's room was chaos. The window stood open, curtains billowing. Nina cowered in the corner, sobbing. 2 of Viktor's men struggled with a figure dressed in black, who'd apparently climbed in through the 3rd-floor window. Kat grabbed Nina, pulling her close. I've got you. You're safe. The intruder broke free, lunging toward them. Kat didn't hesitate. She grabbed the heavy crystal lamp from Nina's nightstand and swung it with all her strength. It connected with the man's head with a sickening crack. He dropped. Viktor burst through the door, gun drawn, and froze at the scene. Kat stood over the unconscious intruder, lamp still raised. Nina clutched to her chest with her other arm. He came through window, Kat said, her voice remarkably steady despite her shaking hands. Nina is not hurt. Viktor's men secured the intruder, while Viktor crossed to them. He cupped Kat's face with one hand, his thumb brushing her cheekbone. You could have been killed, he said in Polish, his voice rough. So could she. Kat met his eyes. I told you. I protect her too. Something shifted between them in that moment. Viktor's hand lingered on her face, his gray eyes searching hers with an intensity that made breathing difficult. Daddy? Nina's voice was small. Is Kat going to leave now? Because it's dangerous? Viktor looked at Kat, the question clear in his expression. No, Kat said firmly. I am not leaving. Not for anything. The next morning, Viktor summoned his entire organization. Kat watched from the doorway as 40 men filled his office, their faces hard with the knowledge of what was coming. Gregor Novak violated sacred rules, Viktor said, his voice carrying that quality of controlled violence that made grown men flinch. He went after a child, my child, in her own home. The room erupted in angry murmurs. He used a civilian to gather intelligence. He sent an assassin into my house. Viktor's hands pressed flat against his desk. This ends now. I want Novak's operation dismantled. I want every business he controls seized. I want his men given a choice. Join us or leave the city. And Novak himself, boss? One man asked. Viktor's smile was cold enough to freeze blood. I'll handle him personally. After the men dispersed, Viktor found Kat in the garden with Nina. The little girl was teaching Kat a card game, her laughter a sharp contrast to the violence being planned inside. Can I speak with you? Viktor asked Kat. Alone? Nina looked between them, then grinned. Are you going to tell her you love her? Because it's super obvious. Nina! Kat's face flamed. What? Daddy looks at you the way he used to look at Mama, all squishy and soft. Nina giggled. It's cute. Viktor cleared his throat. Go inside, princess. Helena made your favorite cookies. After Nina skipped away, Kat couldn't meet Viktor's eyes. She is child, Kat said. She imagines things. Does she? Viktor moved closer. Because I've been trying not to look at you that way. I've been failing spectacularly. Kat's breath caught. Viktor, we cannot... I know. He didn't touch her, but she felt his presence like heat. It's too soon. We're both still grieving. There's a war starting. Every rational reason says this is wrong. Then why say anything? Because you almost died last night protecting my daughter. Because you're walking into danger with your eyes open. Because if something happens to me, I need you to know. He finally touched her, his fingers gentle under her chin, tilting her face up. You're not just Nina's caretaker, Katarzyna. You haven't been for weeks. What am I then? Mine. The word was possessive, fierce, and absolutely certain. If you'll have me. Before Kat could respond, an explosion rocked the east wall of the property. Viktor's phone erupted with calls. He answered one, his face going hard. They're here, he said. Novak brought the fight to us. The panic room was built into the foundation of the house, accessible through Viktor's study. Reinforced steel walls, independent air supply, surveillance monitors showing every angle of the property, and enough supplies to last 2 weeks. Kat had never been inside before. Now she huddled there with Nina while the world exploded above them. I want Daddy, Nina whispered, her breathing already becoming labored. The stress was triggering her asthma. He will be fine, Kat said, trying to sound convincing. Your father is strongest, smartest man I know. He will come back to us. Through the monitors, Kat watched Viktor's men engage with Novak's forces. Gunfire lit up the screens like deadly fireworks. The east wall had been breached with explosives, and armed men in tactical gear poured through the gap. But Viktor's organization was ready. They'd been preparing for this. What looked like chaos was actually a carefully orchestrated defense, funneling attackers into kill zones where Viktor's superior numbers and training created devastating crossfire. There. Kat pointed to one screen, showing Viktor himself. He moved through the grounds with lethal precision, his expensive suit abandoned for tactical gear. 4 men flanked him, their movements synchronized. They were hunting. Nina pressed closer to the screen. Where's he going? To end this, Kat said, understanding with sudden clarity. Viktor wasn't defending anymore. He was eliminating the threat at its source. On screen, Viktor's team breached the gardener's cottage at the property's edge. Kat had never been there, had assumed it was exactly what it seemed, but now she understood it was where Novak's men had staged their assault. The firefight was brief and brutal. Viktor emerged 3 minutes later, dragging a massive man by his collar. Even through the grainy feed, Kat recognized Gregor Novak from photos she'd seen in Viktor's intelligence files. Viktor threw Novak to the ground in the middle of the property, surrounded by his assembled men. The message was clear. This is what happens to those who threaten my family. Should she be seeing this? Helena's voice came from behind them. The housekeeper had taken refuge in the panic room as well, her usual composure cracked by fear. Look away, Nina, Kat said softly, turning the girl's face into her shoulder. But Kat watched. She needed to understand the man whose world she'd entered, whose daughter she protected, whose confession of feeling still echoed in her mind. Viktor spoke to Novak. Kat couldn't hear the words, but she saw Novak's face twist with rage, then fear. He tried to stand, and Viktor hit him with controlled violence that spoke of years of practice. This wasn't rage. This was execution. When it was over, Viktor looked directly at the camera, at her. His expression was unreadable, but Kat felt the weight of his gaze through the monitor. 20 minutes later, the all-clear came through. Helena ushered Nina upstairs to her room, where the child's doctor was already waiting to check her vitals. Kat stayed in the panic room, watching Viktor coordinate cleanup operations with his men. She was still there when he found her. Viktor appeared in the doorway, his tactical gear streaked with dirt and blood that probably wasn't his own. His gray eyes found hers immediately, scanning her face with urgent intensity. "Are you hurt?" he asked in Polish. "No. Nina is fine too. Scared, but fine." He crossed the room in 3 strides and pulled her into his arms. The embrace was fierce, desperate, his face pressed into her hair. "When I heard the explosion," he said roughly, "when I thought they might get to you, I couldn't breathe. I understood for the first time what Nina feels during her attacks. Complete terror." Kat's hands fisted in his shirt. "You came back. You kept us safe. Always." He pulled back enough to cup her face. "Do you understand now? What loving someone in my world means? I think I am beginning to. Novak is dead. His organization dissolved. The men who helped him are either dead or on their way out of the country." Viktor's thumb traced her cheekbone. "Derek Whitmore's father has been arrested for conspiracy. The boy himself is being sent to military boarding school. You did all this in one night? I told you. I protect what's mine." His expression softened. "And you, Katarzyna Kowalski, are mine. If you'll have me." She should say no. Should walk away from this dangerous, violent world. Should return to her safe, invisible life where bullets didn't fly and men didn't die for threatening those you loved. But that life had been killing her slowly. Death by 1,000 humiliations. Death by being invisible. Viktor saw her. Nina needed her. And somehow, impossibly, she'd found family in the last place she'd ever expected. "I need to know something first," Kat said. "Tonight, when you looked at that camera, what were you thinking?" "That I had 2 choices," Viktor said simply. "Be the monster who destroys threats, or be the man who keeps you and Nina safe. I chose both. I need to know if you can live with that." Kat thought about the intruder in Nina's room, about the fear in that little girl's eyes, about how Viktor had eliminated every threat before it could touch them. "I can live with it," she said quietly, "because I understand now. You are not monster Viktor. You are father who will do anything to protect his child, and maybe man who will protect me too. Always," he repeated. This time when he kissed her, it was gentle. A promise, not a demand. His lips moved against hers with a tenderness that contradicted everything she'd seen on those monitors. When they broke apart, Nina's voice came from the doorway. "Finally!" The 7-year-old stood there grinning, Helena hovering behind her. "I told you they loved each other." Viktor laughed, a sound Kat had never heard from him before. Pure joy, unfettered by grief or danger. "You were right, princess," he said, switching to English. "As always." Nina ran to them, and they caught her between them, a family unit that had formed in the spaces between loss and hope. "Does this mean Kat is staying forever?" Nina asked. Kat looked at Viktor over Nina's head. His gray eyes asked the question clearly. "Yes," Kat said, answering them both. "I am staying forever." 6 months later, Kat stood in front of Riverside Academy wearing a tailored suit that Viktor had insisted on buying her. The building looked smaller somehow, less intimidating. Or maybe she was simply bigger now, in all the ways that mattered. The brass plaque beside the main entrance gleamed in the autumn sunlight. Katarzyna Kowalski, Memorial Wing for Immigrant Student Services. Below it, in smaller letters, founded by the Volkov Family Foundation. "You ready for this?" Viktor asked beside her, his hand warm at the small of her back. I think so, Kat said, though her accent still carried uncertainty. She'd stopped trying to eliminate it completely. Viktor was right. It was part of who she was. Nina bounced ahead of them, her inhaler secured in a designer case on her hip. Her asthma was under control now, the attacks less frequent, less severe. Therapy had helped. Time had helped. But mostly, Kat suspected, having a stable family had helped. Inside, the new wing was everything Kat had envisioned. Bright classrooms, computer labs, a resource center staffed by multilingual counselors. But the heart of it was the community room, where immigrant parents and students could gather, speak their native languages without shame, and access services that would help them thrive rather than just survive. Director Harrison, who'd replaced Whitmore after his arrest, greeted them warmly. Ms. Kowalski, Mr. Volkov, welcome. We're honored to have you here for the dedication. Kat noticed how careful Harrison was around Viktor, the slight nervousness in his smile. Everyone knew who Viktor Volkov was now. The consolidation of power after Novak's fall had been swift and absolute. Viktor controlled more of the city than ever before, but he also funded scholarships, built community centers, ensured that people like Kat, immigrants struggling in a system designed to keep them invisible, had advocates and resources. Some called it reputation laundering. Kat called it evolution. The ceremony was simple. Kat gave a speech in English that she'd practiced for weeks, her accent present but her words clear. She spoke about dignity, about how accent doesn't measure intelligence or worth, about how every person deserves to be seen. When she finished, the applause was genuine. Several parents in the audience were crying. Afterward, a young Polish woman approached her hesitantly. She couldn't have been more than 20, her clothes worn but clean, her eyes carrying that particular exhaustion that came from working multiple jobs. Ms. Kowalski, she said in Polish, I just wanted to thank you. I clean offices downtown, and last week my supervisor mocked my English in front of everyone. I was going to quit, but then I saw the news about this place. About you. It gave me courage to report him instead. Kat's throat tightened. What happened? He was fired. The company apologized. The girl's smile was fierce. Because of you, I remembered I don't have to accept being treated like I'm less than human. After she left, Kat found Viktor watching her with an expression that made her heart skip. What? She asked. You're changing the world, he said simply. One person at a time. I am just trying to help. No. Viktor pulled her close, not caring who saw. You're doing what I never could. You're showing people that strength doesn't always come from power. Sometimes it comes from refusing to let the world make you small. That evening, back at the estate, they found Nina in Olivia's sitting room. She was placing fresh flowers in a vase, talking quietly to her mother's photograph. I have new mama now, Nina said in Polish to the picture. Her name is Kat, and she's wonderful. I know you picked her for me, Mama. Thank you. Kat stood in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. Viktor's arms came around her from behind. She thinks Olivia sent you to us, he murmured. And maybe she did. Do you believe that? Kat asked. I believe that losing everything taught me to recognize miracles when they appear. He pressed a kiss to her temple. You were my miracle, Katarzyna. Both of ours. Later, after Nina was asleep, Viktor led Kat to the garden where he'd first confessed his feelings. The fountain sparkled under strategic lighting, and the autumn air carried the scent of late-blooming roses. I have something for you, Viktor said, pulling a small box from his pocket. Kat's breath caught. Viktor, we talked about this. It's too soon. We're still... It's not an engagement ring, he interrupted, opening the box. Inside lay a delicate necklace, a small pendant shaped like the Polish eagle. It's a promise. That you'll never have to hide who you are in my house. That your language, your culture, your accent, everything that makes you Katarzyna Kowalski is celebrated here. He fastened it around her neck, his fingers gentle on her skin. Also, he continued, I wanted to tell you something in your language. The whole thing. Properly. He switched to Polish, his Krakow accent mixing beautifully with her Warsaw inflection. I love you, he said. Not despite your accent, but including it. Not despite where you came from, but because of it. You saved my daughter's life. You saved mine too, though it took me longer to realize I was drowning. You taught us both that family isn't about blood or country or language. It's about choosing each other, every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard, Kat agreed, her own voice thick with emotion. I know it's too soon to ask you to marry me. We're both still healing. But when you're ready, whenever that is, I'll ask. And I hope you'll say yes. Kat touched the pendant at her throat. I will say yes. Maybe not today, maybe not next month. But someday, when Nina is ready to have a mother officially, when we've both laid our ghosts to rest properly, I will say yes. Viktor's smile was incandescent. That's all I needed to hear. They stood in the garden together, two people who'd found each other in the spaces between loss and hope, proving that sometimes the best families are the ones we build from broken pieces. In her room, Nina watched from the window, grinning. She pulled out her journal, the one her therapist had given her, and wrote in careful Polish. Today, Mama's wish came true. Daddy and Kat are finally together. I have a real family again. Different than before, but just as good. Maybe better, because we all chose each other. Thank you, Mama, for sending her to us. I promise to take care of her the way she takes care of me. She closed the journal and looked up at the stars, where her mother lived now according to the songs Kat sang. I love you, Mama, Nina whispered. And I love my new family too. Is it okay to love both? The stars seemed to shine a little brighter, and Nina took that as a yes. Sometimes, the people who seem invisible hold the greatest power. Katarzyna was mocked for her accent, treated like she was less than, dismissed as just a cleaning lady. But she saved a life, built a family, and changed an entire community, all because she refused to let anyone make her small. If this story touched your heart, imagine how many others are out there, waiting to be heard. Stories of unlikely heroes, of love found in dangerous places, of families forged from broken pieces. We share these tales because everyone deserves to be seen, just like Kat. Don't let this be the last story you hear. Subscribe to our channel so you never miss another journey that will make you believe in second chances. Hit that like button if Kat's courage inspired you, and drop a comment telling us what part of her transformation resonated most. Was it her strength when facing the bullies? Her bravery protecting Nina? Or maybe the way Viktor saw her worth when no one else did? Your support helps us bring more stories like this to life. Stories that remind us that accent, background, or circumstance don't define us. What defines us is how we choose to show up when someone needs us most. Thank you for spending this time with Kat, Viktor, and Nina. Their story continues, and so do countless others. We'll see you in the next one.